Yeah, it was a nice little break. All 6 people said they missed us.
Yeah. So you guys shipped Fences 6 beta?
We
Yeah.
did,
Beta
and
1.
then Microsoft announced a bunch of stuff. Intel got a new CEO, and
I thought for sure whoever they announced, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I know that guy, sort of. I have no idea who this person is.
yeah, I don't, okay, I don't know anything
What
about
what I
this.
what I like the most is they're just going to continue with the strategy that
Yeah,
Pat
I mean that's
Gelsinger laid out.
well,
Uh, I
the
don't.
the
Okay.
thing is like with chips like this, you can't just show up and be like, all right, we're gonna switch to subscriptions. Like that doesn't like
That's
these
too
things
bad.
are literal years in the making. Like the chips for
I
next
know.
year are probably 80-90% done, maybe even 100% done, and they're like you can't just
From a design point, that
yeah.
right. And when you do try to do the opposite of what you just described, you get Lunar Lake, right? Which on some level, honestly, good for them. It was like a Manhattan Project thing that actually worked. But then they got it done and they were like, yeah, we're never doing this again.
Yeah.
And it caused a lot of their financial problems last year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's hard when you're committing something to silicon. It's not like software. If you hit compile and publish and you're like, oh crap, I found a bug, you can fix it right then. you know, chips they're hard, literally. They're hard. Okay, sorry. I just got up. Sorry.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, yeah. Anyways, the more interesting thing, there was a leak about
Yeah.
an Xbox handheld coming later
Yep.
this year, but it's
hmm
Xbox and kind of
Adjacent.
name only, maybe.
You know what though? So what's interesting about this to me is that other than the code name, it's just all this. Microsoft has said everything that was in this report, like literally out loud. So we get some sense of a timing. Maybe there's this inference that, this is almost like an experiment, and then there'll
Yep.
be an official Xbox branded something something. But this is the I don't know if it's substantive or not, but it's almost like the first indication of a real world implementation of this thing we've been talking about
No,
for a long
that's
time.
exactly the way I interpret it. Is
Yeah.
well, look at all the things they've announced or they've talked about. Phil Spencer was in an interview and he said we want to start seeing like what it's like to bring the Epic and Steam stores. This is all
hmm
has to be related. Just yesterday was it yesterday? They said 1,000 titles you can now stream over the internet or whatever. And then we've been hearing these rumors about this stuff. Here's the thing that I'm most interested in related to this device. We already know, or at least according to the report, it's not going to play console games on the device. It's
Yeah. Which
here
makes
here's
it a Windows device,
here's what I'm looking
which,
for.
yeah.
So it's apparently going to have a guide button and it's going to have some sort of like more Xboxy experience than what you get on an ROG Ally or all those other devices.
hmm
Here's the $1,000,000 question, throw out. What is that? Is it like
Well,
is it
no,
a mode that the device boots into, a la like an Xbox, or is
yep.
it a shell that is running on top of Windows that allows you to play all this content,
Yep.
which is kind of what we think the next
I,
gen Xbox is going to be.
yep. So two things. I think this thing is really just an evolution of the existing Windows on a small device for gaming kind of thing, right? It's Windows. They have been working to make the Xbox app more of what could be a front end, a shell, if you will, for
Mm-hmm.
a device like this. So we've seen the compact mode for the app itself, for the game bar. Okay, good. Um, I will say for all the people who are freaking out about the Xbox strategy, which is now to meet the gamer where they are, the thing that's kind of nice about this and should resonate with Xbox guys, I guess, is that the original Xbox was a PC. It
Yep.
was a Celeron chip with it was a PC architecture. They went off in a completely different direction with Xbox 360, but since then have brought it back to this
Mm-hmm.
X686, X64, whatever space. So fundamentally, the Xbox operating system is Windows. It's Hyper-V.
Yep.
Um, it's arranged a little differently. Well, I mean, purpose for that device, purpose driven, right? Where on an Xbox, typically you have one main app that you're running all the time, the game, and then you have these other things that can happen that won't, take all the resources of the computer. So it's one might call it a little bit like Windows 10X might have been, if you're only running one native app. So I feel like Windows and Xbox OS are, I don't know, going to overlap. So you're saying right now it's not going to run console games, yes, but a future version of this should, right? This should
Right.
be the
That's
transition.
the thing.
And I think we can only speculate because this is not in the report, but I think this architecture almost has to be ARM, for it to really make sense on
Maybe
portable, right? And that what we're really waiting on here is some coming generation of Qualcomm or MediaTek, NVIDIA, something architecture, whatever it is
maybe.
that, you like, you might buy like a laptop or a tablet or something that is primarily a Windows computer, but connect an Xbox, control it to it, you will play Xbox games. It's going to work great. You might buy this thing that is fundamentally a game machine, but it is at its heart a Windows computer, and it has the controller built in, whatever. But you could load Word or Edge or something, right? I mean, so these two things are kind of fundamentally the same / very similar, but the emphasis, the optimization is on whatever the use case is, So I think we're going to see both. And I think the Xbox version of this system, there'll be a console that sits at your house, whatever. There will be portable things. I think opening it up to third parties makes sense. And that they can go back or forth over that line.
I don't really disagree with much of what you said here. Tell me where I'm wrong, because you're going to say, no, this is exactly it. This is how Microsoft thinks. This is what they're going to do. They're going to launch this device. It's going to have an Xbox Sky button, because to us, for the end user, the Xbox experience isn't the hardware. It's that software integration, right? Your friends send you an invite, you hit the Xbox button and you jump right in. The chat in that whole experience. That is Xbox. So here's what they're going to do. They're going to launch this device in, assuming the fall, according to the leaked timeline. It's going to come out. It's going to have whatever. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be perfect, because it's going to be missing these things. And here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, we learned that this experience works, and we can work with partners to expand the Xbox ecosystem by making it a software layer. And so for the next gen console, we're going to build our own, and we're also going to onboard these partners who will be able to launch Xbox experiences as well. And they'll play those console games, and that's how they start that. That's how they're teeing us up for something we've already heard through the leaks.
Yeah, 100% on that one. So we don't have enough time on this podcast for us to kind of go in depth on this. But if you think back to the differences between the Xbox One and the Xbox X Series, whatever line, essentially was at that time they did what they did before. They came up with one unit. They did like an enhanced version, which in that case was for efficiency, cost reduction, as the S version. Then they did the X version, which was more performance and functionality, 1080p gaming to some degree, whatever you want to call it. When they went to the Series X and S, they released two versions at the same time. So you have this kind of notion of a kind of a scalable range, of functionality. And because it's Xbox closed ecosystem, they require developers to not target just one of those things. They have to optimize for both, right? But even they themselves have put out games that don't take full advantage of the X until later. Maybe it doesn't hit 60 frames a second until there's an update or whatever. But the capability is there. So I think what you're sort of describing, and I do see this happening, is more of a spectrum range of capabilities.
Yeah.
So you can get into Xbox cheaper by having lower end hardware that games to whatever 720p, 1080p, whatever it is at the time. But then you can also scale up to true 4K with 60 frames, whatever, HDR, blah, 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 whatever the capabilities are, right? It's also, if it is ARM, they have that super
Well, what's also interesting?
resolution
What was
stuff
announced this week, coming soon for support on ARM?
Yes,
Fortnite's easy anti-cheat stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and this is look.
But I know it's like easy to be like, oh, it's like that is a predecessor for more titles coming natively to ARM.
Yeah, so for the current generation, if you just look at the Snapdragon X as it is today, the line, and what it's for and what they targeted and the point of it and all that stuff was like, hey, like they had to get the CPU, right? It had to be able to do that thing they always promised but never did. Run our apps 100%. We never think about it, and that worked. But there's more work to be done. And on the hardware end, the big one that they're focusing on for V2 is GPU. And GPU in the use cases for today, a laptop, you're running Excel and PowerPoint and blah, blah, blah. Fantastic. The one place it falls apart, which I always found it kind of weird that they promoted it so heavily, is games, right? And as it turns out, if you can optimize a game that's natively running x64, you can actually make this thing run really well on an ARM thing today, even with the system as it is. But you add in things like super resolution and auto S or whatever all these things are, you can make up for the limitations, but they're going to get rid of the limitations, right? And so I think this is all coming together. We're waiting for these things to kind of collide, and this is why we're seeing it happen in this time frame.
Well, there's another side to this too that hasn't really been considered. So we're going to make some assumptions here that Microsoft is going to build a software layer that is the whole Xbox experience that you load up on any just Windows PC. It doesn't matter, ARM, x86, or whatever.
You're almost saying like a Hyper-V thing or like a dual boot situation.
Dude, at this point, hardware is good enough that it's just a launcher. I mean, it's just you're just launching at this point. Here's the other thing that's been sitting in the back of my brain. Remember like 2 years ago, maybe 18 months, whatever, there's this big thing about Sarah Bond like spinning up this games compatibility thing to help backwards titles come forward. What if they were just saying like, realistically, we're just trying to make sure we can take the current titles on the console and make sure they play on a PC?
Yes.
So anyways, but that's not where I was going with it. But
okay.
Here's the thing. Let's assume that they can make this an experience. It's a button on your taskbar. It's an X-Rect button. You hit it and whatever. It doesn't matter if it's hypervisor. It doesn't matter. Microsoft can make the pitch internally that we can launch a Windows game store again, but with this all built in, with 30 million users on day one.
30, where do you get that number?
Console sold. So anybody who has an Xbox console can just fire this up on their PC, any device or whatever, log in with their account, and they have their Game Pass, they have their entire back catalog that they've purchased digitally. It's just there.
I think, yeah. I mean, right. So the 1,000 thing you mentioned was Xbox Play Anywhere. So in that system, you buy or get a game on one of the platforms console, and you also get it on PC, and then you get all the cross integration where you can continue playing and it keeps your progress and all that stuff. Okay, that's awesome. I think they've done about as good as you can do on a PC to give you as seamless of an experience as possible. But what you really want is this kind of console experience, right?
Yep.
The console has an architecture where you can have it kind of it instant ons and it's downloading things in the background. And ideally, it never really works this way, but ideally, you wake up in the morning and there was an 80 gig Call of Duty update. You got it, and then you can play the game. But the experience I have on Windows with this game is that I often launch the game. It's like, no, you got to install this huge update first. And my argument there would be like, guys, we have a Windows store, a Microsoft store in the background here. Like, why isn't that just doing this? This thing suspends and does whatever. Like, why can't it do that? And it's a problem, you know. There's no sense in the store of like, checkbox this game and say, look, if this thing gets an update, I need that update immediately. Like, just do it all the time. They don't have that. So I think the next step is this, because like we said, they've been intermingling these things, you know, in language forever, but they're waiting for something to happen to do it really. I think Windows and Xbox, I think the shared architecture, if anything, is more enhanced or whatever. And yeah, I think this is about cross-pollination. When you first said, you said something a while ago about getting Xbox games on PC. What went through my brain at first was like, well, actually, isn't the PC, the games that are available on PC, it's got to be faster, right? I mean, there were more sources, you know, Steam, Epic, etc. But yeah, like actually, what you want is that you want to bring people forward, like you said. You want to give them choices, which I think is cool, and then people can choose based on how they want to optimize whatever that device is. And yeah, I think it goes in both directions. I mean, isn't there a future version where I could buy Call of Duty from Steam and play it on my next gen console on the living room TV or whatever? I mean, I think that's going to be the
Yeah,
goal,
I don't
right?
disagree with you there, but I think for Microsoft there's more benefit for them making every PC an Xbox than allowing an Xbox to play Steam games.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that, but I think both should happen, I guess, or
Yeah.
both
Yep. They're
will
not
probably
mutually
will happen.
exclusive.
Yeah, if that makes
So,
sense.
anyways,
Yeah, interesting times.
it's Friday and it's supposed to storm horrifically this weekend. Apparently, like supposed to get a whole bunch of we're under a wind advisory.
My life goes accordingly. There'll be no storms.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually gonna cut the grass this weekend, Paul. Actually, probably today. Get all these leaves up before the wind blows them all right back into my yard.
It was 83 degrees yesterday here.
Oh, it's plenty warm here. That's part of the problem. It's 77 today.
Oh my God! Wow,
Yeah, no,
look at
that's
you
why we're
guys.
getting the horrific
Oh,
storms. It's nature's going like that's a
yeah.
little too warm for you.
Mhm.
So I think next week it'll be in the upper 50s, which is still
This is great. Yeah, for March.
I can tolerate that.
All right, see you in 2 weeks.